Check. Light up red. Two. Got it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Unfortunately, Supervisor Shucklian is, I'm going to say, snowed in where's she at? Shaver Lake.
I think it's Shaver, yeah.
So there is a lot of snow, but she's not snowed in. I think it was planned. So I'm here today to fill in for her shoes and wanted to go ahead and call the meeting to order and thank you all for being here to serve on the task force. So what we're going to do really quickly is
recording in progress.
To go ahead and just do a roll call. And I apologize now, I completely forgot, and I'm getting over a really bad sinus infection, so I have a stinky voice, and I hope I can make it through the meeting. I might ask for help. For the city of Dinuba, do we have anyone here? Okay. City of Exeter? City of Farmersville, I saw Araceli earlier. Okay. City of Porterville, I see. Here. Perfect. AJ's here. City of Tulare? No one. Margie, City of Visalia. Housing Authority? Cindy? No. KT AAA, I saw Dana. Okay. Leticia from KTHA. Health and Human Services, Donna, I saw you earlier. TCOE, Courtney is here. Perfect. Regional Transit Agency, perfect, Darren. TCSO, Sheriff's Office, awesome. Tulare River Indian Tribe, do we have someone here? The unincorporated community is currently vacant. Affordable housing developer, perfect. Youth Advisory Board, Brandy, I hadn't seen her come in yet. Community Action Agency, that's myself. CSET. Faith-Based Community, I saw Susie Ward earlier. Lived Experience of Homeless, Henry. Awesome. Health Practitioner. Perfect, thank you. Partner, we have that currently vacant. We'll need to follow up with Hannah Giles, who was the Executive Director for Family Services and is no longer there. And so it is not connected to the agency, but rather an at-large. So that'll be a further discussion with Amy when she comes back, maybe. And then CSO for Veteran Representative. Awesome, thank you. We have quorum, thank you. Sorry, guys. Excuse me. Next, we'd like to ask if there's any public comments. And if you have a public comment, it wouldn't be something that you would be addressing that's on the board agenda, but rather you have about 3 minutes to share that. I might need help. Sorry. Do we have any comments?
Just as a general public comment, those who might have seen the email messages last week, the Visalia Rescue Mission hosted Conversations on a Bench. It was a 24-hour live stream going from noon on Thursday to noon on Friday. I think it was a pretty successful event. Michael lasted the whole 24 hours. It was interesting watching the last 2 hours of the show in particular, where he was really struggling through, but he showed the commitment. There was a lot of wonderful conversations that took place. I watched big portions of the live stream, including I woke up at 2 in the morning and turned it on real quick just to see if he was still there, and he was. So I think it was a good event. I'm hopeful that they'll choose to participate in that national event again next year. And if so, I would hope that we have an even greater presence and participation from our voting membership coming in and talking about each voting member's unique position, information, organization, to really punctuate that in the community. But they gave great overviews of the services available, not just at VRM, but in the broader community, information about how to get connected to a wide array of services. And then a couple of times they dipped into the national live stream. At one point they had, I think it was Billy Baldwin at the bench down in Southern California talking about some of the homeless advocacy that he does. It is archived on YouTube, so you can go back and kind of click through there. But it was a really, really neat kind of an event, and again, lots of good conversations took place. So that's my public comment.
Any other public comments? Seeing none or hearing none, we're going to move forward. Next, I'd like us to review the minutes. If anybody doesn't have any edits, then I certainly would love somebody to move it forward. Has everyone reviewed them? Okay. Perfect. Dana is going to first move that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, AJ. Everyone in favor? Perfect. Any abstentions? Nope. Perfect. It's approved. Next, we're going to have a presentation on CalWorks for the Unhoused, and that's Lori Catuto? Catuto. Thank you. And I think you should have the presentation in that was here when you came in, so I'll hand it over to you, Lori.
Good afternoon. Yes, my name is Lori Catuto. I am the CalWorks Program Specialist for Tulare County Health and Human Services Agency, and I oversee the CalWorks program for our county. I have been in this position for over 20 years now, and it's very important, the housing programs that we have, and so I'm here to tell you about it. Okay, so we'll start here. See what you guys can see. First of all, for the CalWorks program, there has to be a child in the home, in the family. We serve families. I get a lot of calls, a lot of emails from folks that find our number on our website, and they are desperate looking for housing, but they don't have children, and so our program cannot help. All right, so there has to be an eligible child. And what makes that child eligible for CalWorks is that they have to be deprived, meaning of parental care or support of their parents. So for instance, there could be a single parent, no second parent. The second parent could be deceased. There could be two parents in the household, but they're considered unemployed. And once they are determined eligible or apparently eligible for CalWorks, then we can help them with their housing if they're homeless or at risk of being homeless, okay? But it has to be a family. To be eligible for CalWorks beyond that point, they have to be financially eligible and be under the resource limit that the state allows for a CalWorks family, all right? Yes.
And what would that be?
The resource limit, they just raised that to be 16,000, actually. It used to be, many years ago, 3,000 for a long time, and the limits have just gone up because we don't want to just serve folks that are, that can't try to make a living, right? And so they've raised that for them, okay? Yes.
Yes.
Did you have another question?
So is that per year for like one person household, 16,000?
It's
Or-
the family, yeah.
Gotcha. Or-
Yeah, and they're actually allowed to have the car, the vehicles that they own. Each vehicle can be worth approximately $34,000. So that doesn't count to the $16,000 that they're allowed to have to be eligible for CalWorks. So the program has really changed. So within the CalWorks program, we have temporary housing that's available to applicants and recipients. So by that, I mean somebody could come into our office and apply for CalWorks, and they declare that they're homeless. And if we determine, based on them completing their application right then and there, that we would consider them eligible, we can give them temporary housing, okay? We can also give recipients temporary housing. They have to be homeless to receive temporary housing, okay? Couch surfing, we do allow for that. That is considered being homeless, and they would be eligible for temporary housing through the CalWorks program, okay? What the temporary housing consists of is 16 days of hotel stay. It's not just hotel. We can give them temporary housing for 16 days up to $85 a day. And after 4 members, the 5th member, it's $15 more per member, okay? That's not a lot of money to rent a hotel or a place. And so it's very difficult for these folks to find temporary housing. And again, we only allow 16 days. Most of our families cannot find permanent housing within 16 days, so a lot of times they're forced to go back where they came from or start couch surfing again, okay? So again, they can stay in a hotel, Airbnb, and a Assembly bill just passed a few years ago. In fact, Tulare County pushed that bill through, and it passed to allow for shared housing because so many of our clients can't afford their own place that our regulations didn't allow them to just choose to rent from a relative or something such as that. And so we pushed a bill through legislation, and now even the shared housing can go with temporary housing. So for instance, if Noah is homeless and I'm his sister and I say, okay, I'll let you stay here for 16 days, but you gotta pay me, then we can pay the sister to allow Noah to stay there. And our regulations did not used to allow that.
Is that a once-in-a-lifetime benefit?
It is not once in a lifetime. It used to be once in a lifetime, but now it's every 12 months with exceptions, and I'll be covering that in just a moment. Noah?
I do notice it says with a valid lease, so does a person then need to do a 16-day lease?
Yes. Yes, when we first wrote that legislation proposal, we did not consider it for temporary housing, but the state expanded that once the bill passed to allow for the temporary housing as well, and so that does require a lease also. Okay?
Excuse me.
Yes.
I have a question. What bill are we referring to in regards to this?
I'm sorry, I don't have
Okay,
that
never mind.
available to me. It was probably 9 years ago,
Okay.
and so I just,
Just curious,
sorry.
so I can research it. I'll find it.
Okay, and so then now we have the CalWorks permanent housing. And the permanent housing is only available to recipients. An applicant cannot come in and without being granted yet and say that they found permanent housing and us help them with the payment of that housing. They have to be eligible and have been granted CalWorks for us to assist them at this point. Okay? They locate their own housing. And this is kind of sad as well, because a lot of times folks think that if they contact us as a housing program, that we have housing available for them. And so we let them know, once you find it, we can assist. Okay?
So on the rules that you just talked about for being active or a recipient, so if somebody comes in and applies and they're not yet granted, you can't give them permanent. You can give them temporary, but you can't give them permanent.
Correct.
But how long is the regulations to grant a
Okay.
and we grant the case once we get all the verification from the client, they could potentially get CalWorks permanent as long
Absolutely. And in fact, our goal, if you came in to apply today, if Donna came into our office today and she declared to be homeless and filled out the application, and we determined that if she provided us all the verification needed to determine eligibility based on what she put on that application, that's called a parent eligibility, then we would grant her her temporary homeless today, and we would try to grant her CalWorks as well. So then she should be able to walk out of our office a recipient, okay? But we do actually have 45 days to grant a case. We're very busy at the Welfare Department. We have a lot of families that apply for homeless and for assistance just in general. But if the individual is indicating that they have found housing or they have an emergent need, we try to meet their need. And so we would try very hard to grant their case even before they walk out of the office. Okay? So their new place, their rent cannot be more than 80% of their total monthly household income. So their earnings, their grant, they might have another individual receiving unemployment, they might have a child, or they might be eligible for SSI, SSP, and so we lump all that together, and their rent can't be more than 80%. And sometimes that's very difficult as well for folks to find permanent housing that's under that threshold. Okay? Again, shared housing with a valid lease, and so we allow that. And that's the reason why, because a lot of these people, for instance, or they can't find housing within 16 days that is affordable, or even after 16 days, affordable housing is very hard and difficult to find in our county. And so with shared housing, with a valid lease, we will allow that. Okay? The hope with a valid lease means that I might rent from my sister, a friend, or even a stranger, and in a month, it might not work out, but a lease will help them remain housed until they can find another place or come up with a solution to what's going on in their household. The permanent housing pays last month's rent. Okay, most landlords want last month's rent. We pay deposits. We pay the application fee for the unit that they were approved for. We do not pay for first month's rent. Okay, so sometimes that's difficult as well. All right, but we don't pay for that in this program. Yes. Tulare County. And then within this CalWorks housing program, we also have the ability to pay rent arrears to avoid eviction. This is not so new, but it came along a few years after the temporary and permanent housing because we don't want folks to have to be evicted before we can help them. If we can help them remain in the home that they're in, then we can help pay the recipients not to exceed 2 months of past due rent or mortgage, okay? They still have to qualify, though. They still have to be eligible for CalWorks, and it must prevent the family from being homeless. We have a lot of folks that come in and say, I'm 3 months behind. We can only help for 2 months, and if they don't have a way to pay that third month themselves, then we can't help them because that's not going to avoid them from being homeless, all right? But we do have other avenues that we can go down to try to help them out with that third month's rent. I'm going to be talking about our housing support program here in a minute. So we do try to use other programs to help this individual remain housed, okay? That's right. All of our payments go directly to the household, and they are responsible to pay the landlord or the hotel or Airbnb or what have you.
Do they provide receipts or verification?
They do. They do. Regulations require us to say, here's your money, and then when you come back next time, bring us receipts. Let us know what's going on. There's a lot of verification that's obtained during this process. For instance, we reach out to the landlord for the rent arrears, and we will tell them that we are looking into being able to help this person catch up on their rent. Are you still willing to rent to this person? And of course, the applicant or the recipient at this point isn't really going to go for this if the landlord's not going to allow them to stay there. So it's really a great program. We've helped a lot of people avoid eviction with this program. Okay. Rent cannot exceed 80% of total monthly household income, just like our CalWorks permanent housing. We don't want to set our clients up to fail. And so we will not pay if their rent is more than 80%. Okay? All right, so then we also have, you know what, I feel so silly as I drove over here. I thought, oh my gosh, I forgot one of the most important programs that we have. And so after this one, I'll tell you what that one is, okay? But you don't have a slide for it. So back in 2014, the state of California, developed the housing support program. And it is temporary, permanent, or arrears. I'm sorry, I'm still on CalWorks homeless assistance. I'm sorry. So it's temporary, permanent, or arrears. It's once in a 12-month period. You asked if it was once in a lifetime. Again, a few years back, it used to be once in a lifetime, and they changed it to once every 12 months with exceptions, okay? Domestic abuse. And so if you gave me temporary and or permanent housing and I find myself in an abusive relationship and I need to flee or move someplace else, I can come back in and get another set of temporary and permanent homeless based on the fact that I could not remain in the home that I was in under these circumstances. Okay? So it's once every 12 months and with exceptions. And domestic abuse is one of those. If the place is determined to be uninhabitable, okay, third-party reference or third-party verification is required for this, they would meet an exemption. We could give them another set of 16 days and permanent housing. We used this particular exemption a few years back when we were facing the really bad drought and a lot of folks ran out of water. Their home was determined to not be livable, and so they met that exemption, and we helped them out again with the CalWorks homeless assistance. That's just an example of what we can do, okay? When there's a state or federal declared disaster, then we can help them again within that 12-month period. And then this one we don't use very often. We don't have we haven't really experienced this one, maybe once. If the individual is medically verified physically or mentally incapable or have an illness such as that. And it prevented them from paying their rent, or it assisted them with becoming homeless. You know, it just depends on what the situation is, but then we can waive that once in a 12-month time and use this as an exemption as well. So here we are now with the Housing Support Program. And this was implemented back in 2014. We got a substantial amount of money from the state of California to develop this program. And it's for CalWORKs recipient families, so it's not for applicants. But again, if you come in to apply for aid with us today and you tell us that you found a place or that, that you are homeless, we're gonna grant your case and then refer you over to the Housing Support Program. We're not gonna say, well, you have to wait until we can grant you. We know that you're homeless, you have a need, and we want to meet that need by granting your case so that we can refer you to the Housing Support Program. Okay? For that program, they have to be at risk of homelessness or be homeless. Okay? The referral has to come from our department, and it goes over to CSET. They administer the program for us. And when we meet with them on a monthly basis, I tell them that every night I pray to God, and I tell him thank you very much that they administer this program for us. It's very difficult, and they do an excellent job. They really do. They're good keepers of our money, the rules, and they house people. And I'll give you some statistics here in a little bit. So they provide advocacy services, assisting the family through process of securing housing. They do have people that are out there looking for housing. They have life skills classes that they provide to our recipients. We are trying to make this more of a requirement than it used to be, because it's really great that people can learn to become a good renter, a good neighbor, how to pay their rent, how to budget, things such as that. We don't have a lot of people that take advantage of this particular program with CSET at this point. So we're trying to work it in there to make sure that we get more folks that can go to this life skills class. They provide case management, and they stay with the family until secure in their housing. And it's really worked out well, really well. We have learned, however, that we need to provide incentives. And when I give you guys some statistics, you will see that it takes a lot of referrals over to this program to be able to house very little compared to what we've referred over. Okay, and so each step of the way, the first thing is, I'm going to refer you, please answer your phone when they call. And oftentimes, our folks don't answer the phone. They never can be located after they've come in to apply for it with us. So we're not sure what's going on with the family at this point, but that's the first thing. Okay, and then they have to do an intake interview with CSET, and once they complete that interview, then we might give them $100 to the family for meeting that first step of the requirement for this program. And it just helps them along the way to keep going with this effort of trying to find housing. So we do that now. We didn't always. Once they find their housing and they are placed in this unit, then we can provide them the essential living things that they might need, like furniture, couches, cleaning essentials, food cards, just all kinds of things depending on what that particular family needs. And it all comes from the Housing Support Program funding. So it's really a great program. And during this time as well, if the adult is in any kind of an employment training program or employed, CSET works really close with them to try to get them a lease in place or some kind of housing voucher so that they can be sure to be able to afford the rent that they just found that unit and be able to stay. Okay? There's food vouchers, deposits we pay, rental assistance. This program does not prohibit us from, it's not restrictive in any way. We would not, of course, want their rent to be more than a certain amount because, again, we don't want to set them up to fail, but we can provide them with many of the things that they need, whereas in the CalWorks program, we only pay last month's rent and any deposits. So it's really a good deal. If somebody comes in, they're homeless, we give them 16 days, we refer them over to the housing support program, and we braid our services to be able to provide them everything they need to be secure in their housing. And again, employment services, and if somebody is not in a training program or employed, CSET even has their own training programs that they put our folks into. So we really work together with this family to try to make them self-sufficient and secure in their housing. Okay, so this is where I failed to add a very important slide here. A few years back, there was an assembly bill. It was AB 557, and this particular one was passed, and it was given to the welfare department to administer, which is the right place to be, and it's all about a victim of domestic abuse, okay? And so it's for somebody who is fleeing domestic abuse. They have to be an applicant of CalWorks. They cannot be a recipient. So here I am. I'm a working individual. I'm married. I have 3 kids, and I'm being abused. And I'm done. I can walk into the welfare department and let them know my situation, complete the application. We don't pay attention to the income that my spouse has. We don't look at the home we own, the boat we have in the driveway. I am a victim of DV. Now I can get 16 days of temporary housing. Right here, right now. I don't have to come back. I walk out of the office with 16 days on my card to be able to pay for housing. If I'm still homeless after those 16 days, I can come back in and get an additional 16 days under this particular program. Okay, so that's 32 days that we can give a victim of domestic abuse. She hasn't even touched, I say she, it could be a he, her CalWorks eligibility, housing eligibility at this point. So here she can get 16 days under AB 557, and if she's still homeless, then we can give her the 16 days of temporary housing for CalWorks, and then because she's a DV victim, we can give her an additional 16 days for the exception once in a 12-month time frame. That individual can actually get 64 days of temporary housing. And that is just a really great deal because that gives them such a longer period of time to be able to find affordable housing and to feel like they don't have to go back home, right? We haven't had too many applicants for this particular program, but we've had a good handful. So it's been very nice that we have that program available to us. Yes. They just need to come back. They just simply need to come back, and we try to stay in contact with them. Now, here you are. You come in to apply for aid today. Again, you have a need, right? And so I'm going to try to meet that need. I'm going to work with you. I'm going to counsel you. I've referred you over to other services to help you out with whatever your other needs might be. And you must come back on your 15th day so that I can give you an additional 16 days. And so we counsel them that way as well.
Is there a limitation as far as time on your HSP program? They can only be in that program for a year, 2 years?
There's not. It's so individualized based on the family and what their needs are. So CSET works, like I said, really very closely with their families, and they can stay with them for a year, for even a little bit longer than a year, whatever their need is. And with the housing support program, not only do they assist with securing the unit when they find it, but they stay with the family and help subsidize their rent until they're able to afford it on their own. So they kind of wean them off of the program based on the progress that the family's making to be able to support the unit that they found. It's just really a great opportunity. Good question. They absolutely do not. Somebody can walk in and say, I'm a victim, I'm fleeing, and we assist. No verification is required. The AB 557? Oh, the housing support, oh yes, the housing support program is, it is. And you know, a few years ago, our governor gave us a ton of money. I say a ton of money because it was so much more than we were allocated to in the beginning. And we had so much money that it rolled over to the next year, and then to the next year, and then to the next year. And we're just now spending the rest of it by the end of December this year. And so we've had it available to us for about 4 years now. That's why I mean it was a ton of money. We didn't spend it all in 1 year, and so we're able to just keep rolling it over until through December of '25. Yes.
I had a question on AB 557. Does the victim need to be homeless or not necessarily? They could be in a house with the abuser and fleeing. correct?
They just have to be fleeing their abuser. Okay, and so I might have already left my abuser, moved in with my sister, and now I'm homeless. And so I come in to apply for aid. I'm no longer fleeing my abuser because my situation has changed, right? Now I'm just homeless because I can't stay with my sister anymore or something such as that. They literally have to be fleeing their abuser. Okay. I'm sorry that I missed that in the slide. I thought, oh my gosh, that is so important. So our fiscal outcomes for CalWORKs this past fiscal year, we've had, and this is what I'm talking about with the examples of getting this many people referred over to CSET and only this many people take advantage of the program. The first thing they have to do is answer their phone. We had 1,089 issuances of temporary homeless assistance. This is under the CalWORKs program. So these are folks who come in to apply for CalWORKs or are already a recipient, and they're indicating that they're homeless. We have given 1,089 families temporary housing last fiscal year. Okay, 445 of those families receive permanent housing. So the rest of them, 1089 minus 445, are still homeless or went back to where they were before they came in to apply with us. They did not find permanent housing at this point. So 664 families we have housed with our CalWORKs program last fiscal year or helped them avoid eviction through our rent arrears program through the CalWORKs program. That's pretty good. Our housing support program, we referred 720 families over to CSET. 322 completed the intake process. So 398 folks or families didn't answer the phone or never came to their appointment to follow through with the process with the housing support program. 32 people completed life skills training. Remember I said earlier that not too many people take advantage of this. We do have people that come back through this program again and again. And so I think at this point, this is where we're going to say, okay, but this time you need to go to life skills class. You know, that we're going to require a little bit more out of you at this point. Because it's just really a good opportunity for people to learn how to be secure in their housing. We had 119 families housed or prevent eviction, which ended up being 441 individuals that we helped this last fiscal year through the Housing Support Program. 182 active families that are still within the Housing Support Program. Some of those people have been in the program for a long time, where CSET is still providing them case management services. They could be helping subsidize their rent, you know, just trying to get them through whatever needs to take place to have them be able to afford their own housing. So we're working still with 182 families at this point, and still referring more to them on a daily basis. Okay, and that's it. That's the programs that we have available. And again, I'm really sorry that I did not add the AB 557 slide to this. That one to me is just really important. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Lori. Lori, I'm sorry, I do have a question here. A lot of these, I say at-risk or homeless clients, they don't have a phone just because they have emergency phones, and either their phones become disconnected or they just don't have a form of contact. Is there any way to send maybe a text message or an email as a follow-up?
We just updated our referral form that we send to CSET. We, at our agency, don't communicate via email with our clients at this point, but we did update our referral form because CSET does. And so now we're asking folks for their email address as well, so that we have any way to contact them. CSET contacts these families after they receive the referral within 24 to 48 hours, most of the time 24 hours. And so it's just a problem, you know, and we tell them, we counsel them and say, they're going to call you, you must keep your phone on, and, you know, just at least get through the intake process. So,
And just
yeah.
to let you know, Araceli, we do email them.
Oh, that's great.
And the reason I know that is there was a family we were working with, and they didn't want to go into the motel because of their dog. And so some of us fostered the dog. So there's a lot of, you know, and I think we have to remember, these folks are in crisis, so it says a lot that they can't even follow up, or just things happen, emergencies, or a family member says, you know what, come and live with me, then they get mad at them again, and they get back into the cycle. So there's a lot of variations as to why. So you know, it's an easy way to blame folks, but sometimes there's just so much going on in their lives.
It is a cycle, and
It
they
is a
are.
cycle.
That's a very good point. They're very much in a trauma situation at that point. Okay?
Thank you, Lori. A lot of great information. Learned a lot more today on some certain programs. So I think, especially the domestic violence, I think for us is kind of trying to figure out how do we share more of that opportunity for people who are in crisis, and how they can access these resources quickly. Because I think sometimes people feel like they're all alone. And if we can get that information out as much as we can, even to churches, because sometimes it's a friend of a friend who hears something, and that way we can let them know.
You know, I want to tell you there's a huge initiative on the state level for domestic violence. Oh my goodness, they started a whole new unit at the state level, and every welfare employee that works at the welfare department throughout the state of California, it's a mandated training that they have to go through. There are certain new processes that we need to make sure that if you are a victim, that we are trying to get that out of you, so that we can provide you the services that you need. So there's
Perfect. Great.
I know when I was on the human trafficking program, we used to take posters out to hotels and put them up. Do you have or your staff created any kind of little poster, you know, we can post it at the warming center, the navigation center, you know, at churches or other places like that, where that kind of information can share with them, domestic violence calls, and say not to arrest you, but
You know,
Do you mind just unmuting the mic real quick so we can?
We didn't used to advertise the CalWorks program like we do, for instance, the CalFresh program, trying to get folks to come in and apply. That's changed a lot, and so that is something that the state is working on, is a universal voice out there, or some type of posters, things such as that, that all the counties can use, that'll be the same, that will allow folks to know that we do have services available for people. We have some really good services.
Do you guys have any pamphlets or any outreach material that you can hand out?
Not at this point, we don't, no, but we're starting to work on some AB 557 material, and again, this is kind of coming down from the state, so we're just waiting on them to push it out.
Is there an income limit for AB 557?
Is there what?
Is there an income limit for the DV?
They have to be eligible for CalWorks. So if you came in today, I would have you complete the application. If you don't have all your verifications and all that, based on what you put on the application, if I say it looks like you'll be eligible, you walk out of our office with 16 days on your card for your housing.
So to clarify on that, it would be the initial 16 days for the applicant, so they haven't yet qualified for CalWorks, et cetera, so they could have a lot of assets and get denied CalWorks later, but initially they qualify for 16 days, they can get a 16-day extension, and then if they don't qualify for CalWorks, they wouldn't be able to do that 16 days and the additional 16 days.
The great thing about AB 557 is that we don't look at their assets. Like I said, they could leave a self-sufficient home, they have a boat in the driveway, you know, they own their home, all that. They're a victim, they're leaving it, we don't count it.
But how about the income without counting?
The income of that parent that they're leaving, we don't count that either.
But you would count theirs.
We count theirs.
Okay, but again, during the initial application, that hasn't been determined and stuff, so they could get access to the 16
Absolutely.
days, they could get an extension, and then get denied
Right,
CalWorks.
right. But I want to say, that can happen, but we try our hardest to make sure that they're eligible, because if we gave you 16 days and you turned out not to be eligible, you would owe us that 16 days back. So we need to be sure that you're eligible before we hand out that 16 days.
Okay, so that applies to that initial application. If then they're found to not be eligible, they would have to pay back that money?
Correct, correct. That does not happen very often, because we need to be sure that you are determined to be apparently eligible.
Which is why you really take the time to
Right.
do the assessment,
Right.
the application,
Right.
and everything, so that you're not giving the
Right.
money to someone you know
Right.
isn't income eligible for the program. so
Correct.
they don't have an overpayment.
Right. Yep. I don't know of one, to be honest.
I have a question. Is the law enforcement notified as soon as any victim goes in there claiming to be domestic violence?
No. And that's one of the reasons why we don't require any type of verification either. Sometimes when you force somebody to contact the police, it makes the situation worse, right? They are already going through their own trauma. It's up to them to report it and to handle that side of it. If they feel in fear, we can help get them someplace safe. So it just depends on what the situation is, but they're not required to contact the police. No verification is required.
And why would, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go there.
No, go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead.
If a woman's or man is living domestic violence, they don't want to have any contact with their partner, why would you want them to involve the police? Because that's just going to make that contact even worse.
Not necessarily. That's your opinion, but not necessarily,
Well,
because
it depends on the situation of the
Exactly.
household.
Exactly.
And we do encourage restraining orders and whatnot. We don't necessarily do that, but we refer folks to family services. They handle all of our domestic violence services with regard to the actual services for DV, and they advocate for the safety of the family.
Okay, something's being done.
Yeah, I think the key here is, this is not a mandated reporting program.
Okay.
If it was a child involved in the home and there
Then we
could be
would.
possible abuse,
Right.
then yes,
Right.
that changes the game, and that's a
Well, that changes the whole
mandated
venue
reporting.
there.
That
Yeah.
changes everything.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Right.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Lori. A lot of really good information. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Noah, who's going to introduce our next speaker.
So here we have Jeff. Jeff has been in the community before, representing News and Review. In the earlier part of the pandemic, we ran some communication and publications with our organization to help educate our community. We've had other programs in the county, both county government as well as just in the geographic area of the county that's worked with the organization before. Jeff and I were recently speaking about, communication needs, things like that. So we thought it would be a great idea to bring him here to discuss this with the group. But on the very front end of this, I do want to be clear that we do not have dollars earmarked from any of our budgets currently that we oversee paying for this activity. So this is a group discussion to see if the group finds value in this activity, and if so, does your organization, your program, have dollars to contribute into making a communications or marketing campaign occur? So that's one of the discussion points or conversational points as part of this activity. Are there messages that you need to tell from your program or you need to tell from your jurisdiction or community that we can contribute together to braid funding into making a project happen? So that's really the thrust and context for that. And now I'll hand it over to Jeff to take forward.
Thank you very much, and I'm really honored to be here. And Noah and I we're talking about the housing, your homeless initiative, and I'm just speaking as a Sacramentan where things are very dysfunctional. To see collaboration and the stuff you're doing is just really inspirational. And so our organization, my background is running newspapers. I have 50 years of running, publishing newspapers, and we set up a communication company about 15 years ago that uses journalists to help mainly government organizations tell their story. And we've worked with over 700 organizations whether it be Child Protective Service or Health and Human Services or environmental issues or housing, homeless, is what we always find is that the organization has a tremendous amount of wisdom, knowledge, expertise embedded in their organization, but they usually have a hard time explaining what they do. And so what our process is really to first to find out what challenges you're having, what goals, like do you need more awareness, do you need more funding, et cetera. And then we ask basically reporter questions and figure out the important points and help develop a narrative and tell stories about it. And so what we do is a free discussion or storyboard session like we're having today, because we don't know what to offer until we know what you need. My dad was a doctor in Littleton, Ohio. He always said, Jeff, you should do the prescription after the diagnosis. All right, so that's what we are recommending. And then we have story packages like Tulare County's done with us before, where we can do 8 stories for $22,000 or 12 stories for $32,000, where we do all the writing, design, set that up for you for a publication or for online, for social media, et cetera. And so it's one of the issues is what do you want the community to know about your efforts here? And first we want to set up a discussion there. For instance, like when we work with Sacramento County and talking about the homeless issue, one of the big things they were worried about was they were doing all these programs on homeless, and they felt the community felt they were doing nothing because the homeless situation was getting worse. And so they really wanted to show what they were doing to build up more support and awareness for that. Others, we've done numerous publications for CalFresh, Medi-Cal, working with CPS, et cetera, and we're often finding, I think, like the complexity of like what we just heard in terms of applying for CalWorks or those programs, there's a lot of confusion out there. And using our journalists, what we often can find is develop prototype stories that can explain how a person went through the process, and then you give them the additional information. it's far more easy for them to navigate, and it's far more likely they're going to come in more prepared with that. And what we know about stories is stories go into the empathetic part of the brain. And so when you read a story, you'll read, what if I was homeless and was in this situation, what would I do? Or what if I was in a domestic violence situation, what would I do? Once you go there, you're far more likely to be able to understand the policy and identify with the story, know the importance of the program. The second thing that stories are really great on is showing collaboration, which I know that you're doing so much here in Tulare County, is if by definition, if two organizations are collaborating, somebody's life must be getting better. So if you explain the collaboration via how the collaboration helps somebody get better, it brings it home. Both organizations can use that. Trusted messengers can get it out there in their social media and et cetera. And it really then makes it real. So so the first question that I'm interested in terms of for you is what communication challenges do you have going forward for 2026 in terms of we need to know more about our programs, we want to get more participation in our programs, we're worried about federal cuts coming and how we're going to respond. How do we want to develop a narrative out there? Because I think it's common knowledge, but it's like if you can control the narrative, then you can develop different partners, people can view the situation in a different way, and then it creates an element of social change that is really important. If you don't control the narrative, then you're in deep trouble because somebody else will fill that vacuum for you, and then that creates its own kind of problem. So that's my, I asked Noah, what would be the major communication challenge that you have, and he said, I should talk to you. Or how do you want to frame that, Noah?
Yeah, it's basically, I have my thoughts and opinions on communications and what might be helpful, but this is a group, this is a collaborative. We're made up of our constituent organizations and representatives, so this shouldn't be Noah's opinion on the communication, and that was basically like my reply back to Jeff is let's bring it to the group, let's talk about it here, and let's see if our members find value in this movement or this direction, and if they do, we'll go that way. If they don't, then we don't go that way.
I guess one of the concerns I would have is sometimes when you print something, it can go, things can change so quickly. And that would be my concern. But I do feel like the community needs to know, I almost feel like a report card on what we've been able to accomplish on the task force. So I think if there was something that we could create that talked about how many people were housed, how many navigation centers now exist in Tulare County? What resources are being connected? What other resources are available for instance, for domestic violence, so if somebody knows somebody? But I do think that that's an area that, I often hear, well, what are you guys doing? And I go, oh my God, what are you talking about? Have you not seen the Majestic? Have you not seen Sequoia Village? Fincus Arena in Porterville, and what's being built now at the city of Tulare and the Navigation Center. So I do think that I kind of need to provide folks something that is kind of that they can maybe read, because not everybody's going to go to the digital copy. But I think something like that would be good, and it also provides a report card for us and what we've been doing, because sometimes it can feel like we're spinning our wheels and we haven't celebrated enough what's been accomplished. And the amount of people around this table illustrates that. And so I think for me, that would be maybe something that I know that CSUD, most agencies do an annual report to kind of illustrate the return on investment. This might be a real opportunity for us to talk about, yes, it's taken us a while, but look what's been accomplished countywide. So just my food for thought. Any other ideas or suggestions?
I echo your comments on that. I really do, because I think the community at times needs to be aware of our participation and things that we do for the homeless. And I think based on that, I think we should have some type of publication in regards to, I don't know, biweekly, bi-monthly, put something on the paper or something to that effect of letting them know what everyone on this table is doing in their community. So I think if you reach out, I think we'll get a better report card as what we're getting now, because there's times when I'm out there on the public and the first thing they say when I'm at a restaurant is, look at these homeless people. But in reality, we're doing a lot for these homeless. A lot of people here in this table are doing a lot, so. And we don't get the accolades that we should be getting. So with that, I'll turn that back over to you.
I want to also echo what Mary said. I think it's data-driven as well, so it's going to help us argue whatever we're trying to find, such as funding. So seeing the positive coming out of it. As soon as I opened the newspaper, what is it? When I opened it, it was like positive. And coming from my rural areas, like always, there's always negative feedback on the homelessness. But seeing like there's so many resources available helps us as well to explain it to the community too.
So if you're going to pick 3 things that you would like to focus on of what has been accomplished, what 3 things would you pick?
I guess in my hometown, I would say there's food resources, bringing back, for example, we have Kauai Health that we're collaborating with, self-help, and we have CSET as well. Having those local resources that are available too, because we're kind of like the stepchildren and the kids, we're out in the rural area. And so they're having to find transportation to other major cities to find any type of resources. So local resources as well.
So you've been able to increase the local resources in your town?
Yeah, and in Farmersville, there's on Facebook a local community page. So whatever happens in Farmersville, it goes directly to that community page. But this would be more of a substantial information for our community. So I can see this taking it to our local donut shop, to our local post office, and just having our local seniors reading it, sitting down and seeing it. And that's how they spread the news like wildfire. Yeah.
And then in terms of the things you've been able to accomplish, how has it been possible with collaboration from certain community organizations, working with this? Is there other groups that have come together to make that possible?
I think that's where I'm having a hard time explaining my situation with the homelessness, like, hey, they need that extra help. So I think it's been very difficult, and having this again would kind of bridge that gap and seeing, hey, you know what, there is help out there, it's needed. And so I think, again, having this it's another tool to help that, yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So do you have like a card with a breakdown of the cost of doing something like this and kind of what your structure looks like for payments? How long do you get the services, all of that kind of stuff? The information is great, but I think we don't have like a funding source that we all kind of pitch into. This is a committee, not a body. And so I think we would need to know like the cost and the associated services we get with that cost. Could we get something like that from you?
Yeah, so we have these story packages, like an 8-story package is $22,000, and then we also then can make publications, and then everything that we do, of course, goes online. And so like how, we first started off mainly doing publications for people, and that's why we're called N&R Publications, but most of our work now is really in social media. And then what we found is that one is the individual stories can be shared by multi-organizations in their social media, on their websites, in terms of their Facebook pages, et cetera. And then in terms of really treating you more like a social movement as opposed to corporate marketing. And what I mean by that is I think there is, one is you have a goal of we want people in Tulare County to know that people are working on this problem and they're helping. So that can be like a general kind of thing that can go out and post and et cetera. But if you have landing pages that are more explanatory, that then people can go to be more empowered with the information, just like the CalWorks stories that we just heard about, then you can have those people that then can go and read something a little bit more in depth, and then they can be your ambassadors and evangelists, helping to explain the system, et cetera, and what's being done. So you need to kind of work on both levels, and then we're set up for that. Then it's also, if we do a story package, we also then can convert that into a publication that can have printing and stuff that we can insert or to mail, depending on what you're doing. It also is, I think if one of the issues would be is, first, we've accomplished a lot, but we can do more, and we have resources here we want people to take advantage of, to take those prototypes of stories that we just like, who would benefit from the CalWorks program and that, if we tell their story, that will bring it to life, and then the right kind of people will come in to apply who won't get denied, like for the 80% rule and other things. So we're really good at explaining things. Basically for doing newspapers is we would always try to understand the policy first, and then we knew if we had to tell a story about the policy, because no one's going to read our policy story. So to bring it home with a story, and then it just makes your communication much more effective, your outreach much more effective. So, but like, for instance, if we wanted to do the report card, which I think is an excellent idea, because it sets you up for like explaining in that report card, multi-things could occur. One is what the concrete things that we were able to accomplish and identify those, which are clearly, here's the housing projects, here's how we added more resources, here's how we help people navigate. But then also here is, in that, we could then explain here are the other resources people can take advantage of. But also, if you want, here are some of the challenges that we have going forward. I mean, obviously there should be some concern about the decrease in federal funding that is coming, and here is how we're going to be able to respond to that, or if you're in this situation, how we can help you. I think it's the power of what you've created here is phenomenal. I think for people to have a better understanding of that and be able to participate in that, and then see how you're using the funds so well, that should be like a funding magnet in terms of other people wanting to support you. I do think, I mean, speaking as a Californian, because you're doing things better here, I think that should get you on first base in terms of getting more additional funding, if people knew about that, what you're doing.
Any additional comments or suggestions or thoughts? I think, Jeff, in thinking about this is something, I guess I was a little sticker shocked, because I'm thinking, how would we all pay for this? One thing. I think one of the things that I'd like to do is, our Board of Supervisor, Amy Shuklian, is the one that normally oversees this task force. So I would love to maybe bring it back to all of you to see if it's something that either we bring a small group together to see if it's something we'd like to pursue. And then what would it be that we would be looking at, and then how would we all kind of help pay for it would be the bigger question. So, but I do think there needs to be some way for us to talk about that report card, because I think it's important for people to know how we're working together, and it's really nice that we have this on Facebook and other ways for people to hear what's going on in the community. But to see this many folks from different agencies, cities, and the county offices that are here, and departments to talk about how resources are is really important, and I think we need to share that, because I think people need to know what's being accomplished. But also the challenges, and I think right now it's a scary time to put any money out. I'm going to be real honest, Jeff. With the shutdown, I mean, most of us are going to hold on to any funding that we have right now. But I do believe that this is something that's really great. And I remember this piece when it came out, and I thought it was lovely. It certainly dates all of us when you look at the back page. But I do think that we need to look at different ways to talk about the stories, because they really do help to provide a face to the data. When you can connect to a story, everybody has a story, everybody knows someone, and when you can do that, let me tell you about John. You can say we've helped 50 people, but let me tell you about John. John sticks with you. And so I think for us, and looking at everybody, I think it's fabulous, but I think the next step for us would be really to kind of have that discussion and talk, and then we could follow up with you. That
So,
work?
like, when we work with Iowa, for instance, we're doing this around the country. So like, in Iowa, for instance, they were having a tremendous need to develop home healthcare workers that would work with, in the nursing homes and help people, and there was a huge shortage. So like, for there, what we did is, like, I think 6 organizations came in, and they all contributed a little, and then we were able to insert something in every Iowa paper, something that went online, et cetera, and then told that narrative of why it makes sense, who they can recruit, et cetera. I think it's, now, we can also set it up that, if people that are contributing, to make sure there's a story about them that they could use in their, on their social media, et cetera, and then make it collectively more important. Like, for instance, we just heard about for the CalWorks is certain stories about what you're doing there. It shows, they can be used also to show how, partly on report card, but also then here is actual things that are occurring that can kind of help get the word out about your own organization. So it's, whether it comes in with one organization paying for everything or everybody just contributing a little and then getting recognition for that, both will work. But I think one problem the government has is that we don't tell our story enough, that people don't know what we do, whereas often in the corporate world is they're telling their story and they don't do very much. We're doing a lot and people don't know about it. Right. And so we're talking about what, 1/2 or 1% of budgets to be out there to explain the narrative and to get people engaged and to visualize what you're doing. I think that is really key, and you'll get a tremendous return on investment, particularly to combat the kind of cynicism that is there. If we don't show what we're doing, that will only manifest itself and make things work.
It's not to say that we don't agree with you. We agree with you. I think right now most people are holding on to their budgets. And I think for some of us, we can't do advertising with our budgets. And so we have to be very careful with the outreach and how it's done. I think what would be work for us is to really just maybe get a committee together to talk about and kind of identify what we would like to do, and then follow up with a conversation that's more focused. That would allow us then to kind of come up with some opportunities. And when you said that, I'm like, oh, there's some partners, maybe some funders in the area that we might ask. This is a tough time to ask because a lot of agencies are asking right now during the holidays, but it certainly would be something that we could talk about in the new year and highlight the great work that's getting done. We agree with you. We're not disagreeing with you. Mm-hmm. I think we just really probably need to have a more focused discussion, which will allow us then to pinpoint what we would like, and then how do we move forward, I think would be. So we definitely appreciate you coming today and sharing. This is a wonderful piece. And we recognize that the people we're serving like to hear the information in different ways, and some of it is still paper, and some of it is digital, and certainly we want to make sure that we're covering all of those pieces. We agree. Perfect. Any other final questions for Jeff?
Sorry, Mary. If the task force did want to consider a temporary committee, I could entertain a motion to form an ad hoc committee for that purpose.
Okay. Is there any folks that would be interested in sitting on that ad hoc committee? Donna? Okay. I'll sit on it with you as well, Mary. Araceli? Margie? Anyone else? Oh, Leticia? Okay, perfect, because there's a bunch of different documents that we all create that need to hit into this. So, all right, perfect. Then we'll work on something. Everybody in favor of doing the ad hoc committee, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any abstentions or nays? No? Hearing none? Okay, we're going to go ahead and move forward with an ad hoc committee, and we'll work on that. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. I was going to give it to Jacqueline. So thank you, Jeff.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Perfect. Next on our list is, on our agenda is the voting member renewals, and there's a couple of us, I'm included, that needs to finish up my application, so we need to get that over to Noah, so I'll work on that. And then I think we just have the at-large, is there an at-large one? A partner rep and an unincorporated is what we're looking for. So if you know of anyone else that might be interested, please let us know, and that way we can get that application to them to get it filled out. And our goal would be that we would bring this up to the next meeting in November so that we can all vote on it, since all of the other applications are in. So I'll work on mine too.
In the next step, after our November meeting, December is
Thank you
usually
again,
dark, so we're trying to get this done in advance because the folks listed here, they all term out on December 31st. This does our vote goes as a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to then appoint these folks. And if we can get all of that accomplished within the next 2 weeks, it should be able to go before the board in late November to, I think they have one meeting in December, and that would give us plenty of time so our voting members are all affirmed before our January meeting. So that's really what we're racing against is our January meeting, so none of these folks lose their positions. But we do have 2 vacant positions we actively need folks for. If we can get applications from them again in the next 2 weeks, we can include them in that November push. Otherwise, they'll probably have to wait until January for this group to make a recommendation to the board, and then it probably won't be acted on by the board until February or even March. So that's sort of the notice.
Thank you, Noah. And the next on our item is just roundtable of things that are going on in your agency or in the community that we'd like to share. And I'm going to take this opportunity to remind everybody, December 5th, the Christmas tree auction is going to be hosted by TC Hope and CSET's board, and it benefits many of our safety net programs, from our senior services to our youth leadership to our senior meals program. So for us, it's an exciting time, a scary time, but I'm going to tell you right now, we're at over 500 individuals that are coming with sponsorships, and we still have room for more. So I think we're super excited with the support and sponsorships that have come in, but more than anything, it couldn't happen with all the different folks that continue to support. So looking forward to seeing everybody in their nice duds at this event. Please let me know. We still have a lot of tickets available, and if you didn't get your invitation, I've got some extra ones here. If you'd like to take one. So I hope you will join us in December. So thank you. So we'll just do a round table.
The only update that I have is I'm sure you're all following the news at the federal level, state level, and all across the nation. So we are watching very closely. There is a lot of discussions right now because of the shutdown regarding food stamp benefits and potentially CalWorks benefits. We don't have anything solidified today from the state. Once we get information, we will be sharing with the community.
Recording stopped.
Well, there you go. I'm done. Thank you.
I do have an update, and just to add to that. So we have not seen a COC 2025 NOFA come out. It may come out, but it's super late in the year. Usually it comes out August, September. We have a couple months. We submit it in November. It actually is not supposed to come out because last year when we submitted it, it was a 2-year NOFA that Congress passed. But with all the changes happening, the new administration is looking to send out a new NOFA or NOFO. If it does come out, and if you've been watching the news or reading, there was an article that came out a couple weeks ago in the Politico that stated that there will be some cuts for COCs. So what it stated is that 30% of the funding for COCs would go to permanent supportive housing, and then the rest of the funds would go for transitional housing. And so that means that a lot of our PSH projects could potentially turn into transitional housing or get cut. And so I do have an email out for all of our HUD COC funded agencies to meet next week. It's an urgent meeting to discuss and at least have a contingency plan to decide and make a plan to see if, which projects we could set aside for PSH and what projects could be transitional housing if this NOFA comes out. I've also reached out to some providers to start a rating and ranking committee. We typically have a rating and ranking committee who makes the decisions, but really in the end, the COC board makes the decision on who gets funded. I think there's also going to be some changes with tiers and scoring. Typically, it's like the last year, I think it was a 93% annual renewal, so we did have a project that got cut. Within the rating and ranking committee, they made the decision because we couldn't fund 100% of the funds. There's also other parts to it that we may not have to use harm reduction, which is really different than how we've been working in the last 10 to 15 years. But I think the biggest concern is the cuts, and we have about 100 people in PSH projects in Tulare County. And that includes CSETS projects, CCFCC, and family services. And that's as a whole. We do have, head of households, but as a whole, including couples, kids, it's 100 right now. It changes, right? Because sometimes we might refer a couple more folks into a project if they want to reunite with their family. People pass away, a lot of things happen. So that's 100 people that could potentially lose housing. So I'm hoping to schedule a meeting next week to discuss with all the HUD COC funded agencies and their directors a plan in case the NOFA comes out. I really hope that it doesn't come out, but I believe it's going to come out, and that means it'll be a quick turnaround. And the other kind of part, adding to the NOFA, we also had a COC build NOFA last year that I also submitted right after the typical NOFA. That was together with Self-Help to support one of their projects. I think it was Crescent Meadows. Great, thank you. Thank you. So we submitted twice. The first time, then new administration started, and in May, they wanted us to submit again in a different portal. We did it, and a month ago, they asked for another submittal, third time. Never seen this happen before. This was HUD. And this third time, they asked for many requirements that California cannot actually provide. We are not, I think it's called SORNA, so sexual, I forget what the acronym is. People who have a 290, the state is not completely able to provide information to another state, and it's SORNA, SORNA. There's only 17 states that have that qualification in the US. So of course those 17 states were able to apply, but the other COCs within the other states were not able to apply. We did not apply. We're not qualified. We kind of discussed it back and forth. I didn't feel comfortable because we just don't qualify as a state. So there are 2 lawsuits, one for the last COC submittal because they also came out with last minute language on our contracts that we all signed. And then there's a COC builds lawsuit because of other things, but includes the SORNA requirement. We did add ourselves, KTHA, to the lawsuit. Usually when there's about 20-ish organizations at the end of the lawsuit, there's a low risk. I know it's kind of scary, but at this point, I feel like we need to do something. So the board agreed, the COC board. However, we have until October 27th to decide if we want to or not want to continue. But I will provide the COC membership some updates on that lawsuit. And that's where we are. We may see some budget cuts for this next NOFA, so that's frightening. Sorry, I didn't mean to be so negative, but I think it's in the news, and we are seeing a lot of changes within the federal government.
Do you think that they're going to require the work requirements, or are they not talking about that?
Yes, so there's very different requirements now. Like there are work requirements for people who were housing into these projects. A lot of the folks that we work with, they can't work anymore. Also, they've aged, and they probably can't, if they couldn't before, they're on SSI. So, no, a lot of people can't really work. And this kind of goes back to some of these stories. It's really important to have these stories because it does create compassion for people who might be disconnected with the work that we do and the people that we serve. But yes, there are requirements that they're talking about regarding work and wraparound services, so requirements to connect to services. And I'm not sure how they would track that. Drug counseling. Drug counseling, things like that, AOD.
Two-year limit, so those were the two things I was really concerned about. The two-year limit they may place on households, because we know people get into these low-income housing and they stay for a lot longer than 2 years. And so if we have to now require a 2-year maximum, unless they need an exemption or something, I think that's my fear. Like, what would we do?
That's a big concern.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just repeat what I said. So I think one thing that I've really been watching at the federal level through the HUD and all the changes is the fact that the 2-year maximum requirement for folks is very concerning, because we have a lot of families that get these low-income housing units and they stay for a lot longer than 2 years. And if we were now required to place 2 years maximum on them, where would we put them? It's just exacerbating the problem. We're now putting people and then moving them back out on the street. And then the other one was really the work requirement. We have a very high unemployment rate here in Tulare County, and so don't really know what the rules are going to say at the end of the day. They're still working on that, I'm sure, but I think that those are just some of the things that we're looking at, because we know it's going to trickle down and we'll all get affected by just the great work we've all tried to do for the last 6 years to make some great changes for these families.
I think to add to Donna's comment, we are hearing that as well on the PHA side, that they are wanting to look at implementing work requirements and term limits, and those term limits that are in discussion are the 2-year term limits, which, I mean, for someone working towards self-sufficiency, that might be not enough time to get to that self-sufficiency stage. And so just like all other organizations, we're closely monitoring and watching and providing feedback as far as our concerns as well. So we're with you on all of that as well.
I think just to add to that too, I think there might be a role for us as advocacy, because I think as things get clearer and the fog goes away, one of the things that most people don't know is the waivers that were put in for seniors and even foster youth and veterans accessing services. That waiver was at a different age, and so what we're talking about is a senior or an individual who's receiving services now at 67 is required 80 hours a month to do some sort of volunteer or work. So I think it's, for us who help people, 64. So 64 is still. So looking at, I think those that can usually are, but I just don't know if there's even enough jobs. And I think for us, when we've worked so hard to get people stabilized, then to add something else that could unstable them is kind of difficult. So I think that's the piece that we're just, with the fog that's happening, and once they do open up, I think all of us are just kind of waiting and seeing, because we have very large grants that are not funded for next year. And one of those is weatherization and utility assistance, and it's our CSBG grant that assures that many of our rural offices are open, and it pays for our grant writers. So yeah, we're all on pins and needles. It's a big deal.
And I want to add, our PSH projects, they're basically permanent housing. They have been. And so if someone can move out into a Section 8 subsidy to open up that bed or that unit, we have tried really hard with our agencies to do that. And we have been successful in moving people up into a Section 8 subsidy. And that's a great partnership with our housing authority to do things like that, but it's also really hard, and I've heard from agencies like CSET and Family Services and CCFC, it's challenging because a lot of the folks that we do house, they're chronically homeless, so they've been homeless for over a year, so typically like 5 years. They have a disability, whether it's a mental health, a physical, or both, substance use. It's a combination at times with so much trauma that people are just not ready to work, and it can take years to get someone to that level of moving up into a Section 8 subsidy. But even that, it's very few families that were able to move up. And then we also don't have enough Section 8 subsidies. So at this point, we can't move someone up, a family up anymore, because there's no more subsidies. We've used them all. So it's going to be really challenging to choose which projects may have to turn into a 2-year transitional housing project, and which, may stay as permanent.
I have something that's not sad news, I'm sorry. I want to share the Dream Center's Education Summit. Can I pass these out? Is that okay? We're starting registration, so if they've already started, we will be capping them at 170 people. So if you guys are interested, please register. We'll have breakfast and lunch provided. I have personally checked out the breakfast and the lunch, and it's very delicious, so please join us. And it's a free event.
I do have a brief update for the group as well on the status of our HAP6 application. We're experiencing a little bit of friction with the state, is probably the easy way to say that, where we're currently seeking some clarification from them on some, what we, I think, would view as new requirements of the application. Predominantly where we spent all of this time looking at transitional housing and the budget positions. Currently, the state is telling us that in order for our application to be successful, we have to fill that gap, which is over $2 million. And we are arguing against them about that that is not what the application has asked us to do, that we've been asked to conduct an inventory, but not to essentially fund all of the unmet needs, as there's no money to do that. Our only strategy to do that is for the state to increase our HAP6 allocation to then cover those gaps. So we'll see. We are aware that numerous other counties are in the exact same position, because this would, in effect, be almost like a cash match, where we'd have to come up with $3 to draw down $1. Not a very favorable position. There's other elements in the application that we're clarifying as well, but that is the most significant part of that application at this point in time, because we do need the state to give us some sort of an indication, exemption, or other thing to be able to clear that threshold. We've been impressing upon the state how much of a time crunch we're in because of the way they wanted us to approach the application. As just an example, the warming center isn't too far off from opening its doors, and we don't have an approved application, we don't have an approved standard agreement, and we don't have an agreement with the warming center. There's a lot of ground to cover in order to make that happen, and even if the state approved our application tomorrow, that process would still probably take 4 to 6 months to complete. So we're in very unfavorable timelines. This, of course, impacts the Visalia Navigation Center, Porterville Navigation Center, and the other programs that were selected for funding. So this is a problem at the moment, and we're trying to move it forward. KTHA, Kings County, and us met with the state last week to, or actually that was that? Yeah, last week, to discuss this position and get some guidance to go forward. We are alleviating the other elements of the application, which were much easier for us to address, but this funding gap, we have no solution for that unless the state gives us an exemption.
I have a question. Will they allow you to amend the budget at all and say, okay, we submitted as like ideal budget, amend to bare bones so there's not so much of a gap?
I don't know if they will or not, but this is part of the frustration of it, is this is all caught up in, this wasn't a clear expectation from the get-go. If it was, we would have approached all of the funding strategy, the program review, everything much differently. But we've also really been advocating on behalf of our community because it just doesn't make sense with the way that funding cycles work. They asked us or mandated us to project 4 fiscal years into the future when almost all of these funding streams are on, like, say, 2-year cycles. So in the 3rd year, you cannot project that as income because you haven't even submitted a competitive application at that point. So the state's created some catch-22s that are significant problems that really we can't solve. The state has to solve them. So we're asking them to do that.
And I have an update on that too. And attending with other COCs in California, they've all gotten their HAP6 kickback. It's statewide, and it is ridiculous because we spent so much time every Tuesday with the counties, COC, really working through the application and outside of that meeting as well. And we met with the state last week, and I don't believe we got clear guidance from the state, and they were trying to pull information that does not exist. And we can't tell them that we're going to end homelessness with these funds. It's not going to happen. It almost seems as if they think that's going to happen. And so we said that. I believe I said that. And also they want us to have this encampment plan with another map and a spreadsheet on how we're going to tackle each single encampment and a timeline, and where people are going, well, we don't have a home or a place to put 1,000 people that we counted during pit time, right? So, and we said that in the meeting, and it's very frustrating because we're grateful for the funds, and we'll sit and every week go through the application and submit it all, but we don't have clear guidance, and now we have to go back and submit information that we're just trying to add to it. So I don't know. It's very challenging.
So yeah, to just further expand on the encampment problem, again, it's a catch-22 situation where in this application, the state is wanting us to end homelessness by prioritizing encampments for resolution, but the state mandates we use the coordinated entry system, and the coordinated entry system is an individual-based prioritization regardless of where a person is staying at. So we're being asked to do 2 conflicting approaches, and we've pointed that out to the state. Like, we can't resolve that. We can't go and prioritize encampments for resolution when we don't know the priority of the individuals within that encampment. And of course, we pointed out the ephemeral nature of our encampments. They're here one day, they're gone in 3 hours, they're back 5 hours later, they're resolved for 3 weeks, they pop back up. It's whack-a-mole. So we can't, even from that strategy, we can't approach it on an encampment basis. But there are funding streams available, like encampment resolution funding, that provide enhanced resources. However, individuals still must qualify through the coordinated entry process for prioritization. So it's just a highlight of some of the complexity of the application that, again, we can't solve that because that's not the way the system is built. We need the state to give us guidance on that.
And I just wanted to add, I appreciate all the work that you guys have done. I've seen that application. It's just the craziest one I've ever seen in my 32 years, so that says something. I would just reiterate to continue to have the discussions that you guys are having with the state. We have advocated and asked for the state to provide dedicated, allocated funding every single year, not these one-time funds. And we will continue to push that message. And I think Tulare County Board of Supervisors has done that at their level, and we will continue to claim that same message.
I have just a comment. If you need match funding, you could use your PIP incentive, pro-housing incentive program that was currently received or recently received. It's approximately $1 million that's going to first-time homebuyer and owner-occupied rehab, from my understanding. But an eligible activity is helping people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. So it's an eligible activity. So it's something to consider that might help with $1 million.
For sake of context, that funding stream is one that was just recently awarded, and that comes in through the Resource Management Agency. As part of their application, they did write for what Margie was describing. It's a first-time homebuyer assistance program. So I think they'd have to amend their applications and do a lot of things to make that happen. But at the end of the day, that gets us 1 million out of almost 3 million needed.
Future NOFAs, maybe if it's too much work to amend, do another one.
Any other comments? No? Good,
I
hearing
have a
none.
quick announcement.
Okay,
Oh,
go ahead,
Is
go
that
ahead.
on
Go
this topic or a new topic? Sorry.
Whichever.
Okay, I just have an announcement from Self Help Enterprises on Rancho Colegio. It's a new 80-unit affordable housing community that's going to open early 2026. We're accepting applications now. It doesn't have any units set aside for people experiencing homelessness, but all the units are affordable. There's 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. It's at 3510 North Court Street in Visalia. That's not where you go to apply, though, because no one works there yet. It's still under construction. So the leasing office is in the Transit Center at 425 East Oak Avenue, Suite 101. So that's where folks can go to obtain an application and apply. There's no application fee. So we encourage folks, there may be a wait list, but we encourage folks to get on the list for affordable housing.
Erica, do you know which floor that's on at the Transit? Is that main floor or that second?
I don't know. 101 seems like it would be ground floor, but I'm not sure because I haven't been to that office. I know we had one upstairs when we were doing the lofts in Santa Fe, but I don't remember the suite number of that one.
Yeah, that's what, because you said 101, but I wasn't sure because I'm just thinking of the Transit Center. I don't remember office space on the first floor.
Yeah.
But, okay, good. I mean, as long as they know 101, they can get it when they get there.
Okay, thanks. I can double check it too, and if I'm wrong, I'll send it out to the group.
Any other announcements or comments or, no? All right.
Yes.
Go ahead.
For the warming center, we're taking it to council in November. Also, PLHA NOFA was pushed back. It should have been in October. Now they're expecting before the end of the calendar year. But I did receive authorization from our finance director that even though we don't have the PLHA, we're going to do an advance from the city's general fund to open up the warming center this year. So, FYI, you're welcome. So we're going to make that happen and apply as soon as possible. But it's coming in November as far as going to council. So hopefully you're ready. We'll be ready. I know you will be.
Two quick additional updates, which are positive. One, on October 24th and 25th, our county is hosting, and it's a longer title, the 94th Annual Conference for California County Planning Commissioners Association, the CCPCA. But the reason that that's an exciting announcement for us is one of the things that they're doing is focusing in on the success of Neighborhood Village and all of the efforts and partnerships that it took to make that successful. They are looking at that through a planning commissioner lens to look at the zoning and the ordinances around that, but also the complexity of the different partnerships, the philanthropy that went into making that happen. And this is our opportunity to, again, kind of like toot our own horn. So about half a day of a two-day conference will be spent focusing in on that project, taking a physical tour of the site, as well as looking at one of the adjacent self-help properties. So it's another, again, just a great feather in our cap for our community and our partnerships. The second piece of advice is that we're also currently participating and getting ready to film about 20 minutes of a webinar with Cal ICH and the Office of Emergency Services. Cal ICH is the Interagency Council on Homelessness. They created a best practices guide just over a year ago. We were included in that for one of our other community groups called the Community Care Coalition, and all of the communication that went on around the disasters, in particular the flooding disasters, on the topic of homelessness, and how we accessed what's called an Access and Functional Needs Liaison for homelessness. We talk about the CCC as a group, but also the Homeless Task Force, and how these different groups intersect to communicate, to deploy resources, and to help members of our community. So that's being highlighted as a recommended best practice across the state. So those two exciting announcements.
No more announcements? We'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everyone.